It was a gray Thursday morning in the sleepy suburb of Roseview, Oregon, the kind of town where the grocery store doubled as a community bulletin board, and the cashiers remembered your birthday. Inside Miller's Market, the flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as employees in green aprons stocked shelves, scanned barcodes, and tried not to notice the time. A small bell jingled above the entrance. Nathan Briggs stepped inside, gripping a crumpled shopping list and muttering under his breath. His khakis were pressed, his coat expensive, but his jaw was clenched tight, like a man who hadn't slept well in weeks. Nathan was a lawyer, successful, sharp, and used to having things go his way. He moved with the impatient gait of someone for whom waiting had become an intolerable inconvenience. Today, all he needed was soap. Just a few bars of antibacterial soap for his aging father, who had recently moved in after a hip surgery. Nathan was already late for a Zoom deposition, and the last thing he wanted was to waste time in a grocery store. But when he reached aisle 9, something snapped. The shelf was empty. No soap, not a single bar, just a white label with the word "out" hastily written in marker. And one young employee standing nearby, organizing tissues like nothing was wrong. "Excuse me," Nathan barked, voice cutting through the quiet. "Is this some kind of joke?" The employee turned slowly. He was young, couldn't have been older than 20. Slightly hunched, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a name tag reading Miguel. Miguel blinked. "Sir?" Nathan pointed sharply. "There's no soap. No bars. This is a grocery store, isn't it?" Miguel glanced at the shelf. "Yeah, sorry about that. Delivery truck's been delayed the last 2 days." "That's unacceptable," Nathan snapped. "You people always have some excuse. What kind of operation is this?" Miguel flinched, cheeks burning. He opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated. His throat tightened. A few customers glanced over. One mother steered her cart away from the growing tension. "I don't want apologies," Nathan added. "I want someone who does their job. Do you even check your inventory?" Miguel swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. Every morning. Nathan cut him off. "Well, clearly someone's asleep on the job." And with that, he turned on his heel and stormed off, muttering about incompetence. Miguel stood frozen, eyes fixed on the empty shelf, his hands trembling as he clutched a half-unpacked box of tissues. What Nathan didn't see, what no one saw, was how Miguel excused himself 5 minutes later, walked briskly to the back room. Miguel Santiago was 19. He lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment with his mother, Teresa, who had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Every day, he woke up at 5 a.m. to make her a protein smoothie, help her bathe, and ensure she took her medication before catching the 6:15 bus to Miller's Market. He worked 8-hour shifts, sometimes more when co-workers called out. Then he came home, made dinner, cleaned the dishes, and sat beside his mother's bed as she drifted in and out of painful sleep. She used to teach Spanish literature at the local community college. Now she barely had the strength to lift a fork. Miguel had deferred college, full ride, honors program. All of it paused. He never told his manager, never told his co-workers. They just assumed he was quiet, shy, unambitious. But every paycheck went to medication, rent, and utilities. The only luxury he allowed himself was the beat-up paperback copy of The Old Man and the Sea that he carried in his apron pocket. His mother had read it to him as a boy. Now it was his anchor. And yet people like Nathan, people who looked through him, not at him, only saw a stock boy with bad posture and a quiet voice. Miguel sat in the stockroom until the trembling stopped. Then he stood, wiped his face with his sleeve, and went back to work. Part 3. A visit from the manager. The next morning, Mr. Klein, the store manager, called Miguel into his office. "Had a complaint," Klein said, scratching his balding head. "Customers said you were rude." Miguel blinked. "Rude?" "Said you gave him attitude, that you were unhelpful. It was a Mr. Briggs, lawyer, big client." Miguel opened his mouth, then closed it. Klein sighed. "I told him you were one of our best, always on time, always polite. But next time, maybe just smile more, okay?" Miguel nodded. "Okay." But as he left the office, his shoulders drooped lower than ever. That same evening, Nathan Briggs returned home to find his father, Henry, watching the news with the volume too loud. "There was a young man on that shelf today," Nathan muttered, hanging his coat. "At the store. Incompetent. Couldn't even stock soap." Henry looked at him over his glasses. "You ever think maybe he's got bigger problems than your soap?" Nathan scoffed. "It's a job. You show up, you do it." Henry turned down the volume. "You know, when your mother was dying, there was this waitress at the diner. Quiet girl. Brought me coffee every morning. Never smiled much. But she'd slip me extra creamers, ask about your mom. I thought she was just being polite." Nathan sat down. "One night, after your mother passed, I went in and she wasn't there. Manager told me she'd been sleeping in her car, trying to finish school while carrying—" That night, Nathan couldn't sleep. The image of the quiet young employee standing beside the empty shelf haunted him. Not because of the missing soap, but because of something else. Something he hadn't wanted to admit. The boy hadn't snapped back. He hadn't been disrespectful. In fact, he had looked scared, embarrassed, like someone used to being blamed for things out of his control. Nathan rolled over in bed, stared at the ceiling, and remembered the tone in his father's voice earlier. Gentle, but weighted with truth. Sometimes silence is just a heavy heart, trying not to break. The next morning, Nathan called the store. He asked to speak with the manager. "About the employee I complained about," he began. "The boy, Miguel." "Yes, sir," the manager said cautiously. "Miguel's one of our most reliable employees." Nathan hesitated. "Do you know anything about his situation?" A pause. Then, "Not much. He doesn't talk about himself." Nathan thanked him, hung up and sat at his desk, staring at a case file that no longer seemed urgent. He didn't know why, but something inside him had shifted. He knew what he needed to do. 2 days later, Miguel finished a long shift and exited the back door of Miller's Market just after sunset. The parking lot was nearly empty. He turned to walk toward the bus stop when he heard someone call his name. "Miguel?" He turned and froze. Nathan Briggs stood a few feet away, wearing a navy coat and holding 2 paper cups of coffee. Miguel's posture stiffened. "I'm not here to complain," Nathan said quickly. "I wanted to apologize." Miguel didn't move. Nathan stepped forward, extending one of the coffees. "You don't have to take it. But I wanted to say I was wrong. I was frustrated about other things, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair." Miguel took the cup, more out of surprise than willingness. Nathan looked down. "I didn't see you. I mean, I saw you, but not who you really are." Miguel raised his eyes. There was confusion, hesitation, and something else. Vulnerability. "You were just trying to do your job," Nathan added. "And I made you feel small. I'm sorry." Miguel looked away. "It's okay." "No, it's not. And I want to make it right somehow." Miguel paused, then said quietly, "My mom's sick, cancer. I work here so I can pay for her medicine and the rent. Some days it's just a lot. Nathan's throat tightened. I didn't know. I don't tell people, Miguel said. They usually don't care. I do, Nathan said softly. Silence. Then Miguel nodded, just once. That week, Nathan told his father everything. Henry shook his head. You've got a chance here, son, not just to make it right with Miguel, but to remind people what empathy looks like. Nathan wasn't sure what that meant at first, but then an idea began to form. He reached out to a few contacts, local business owners, some neighbors, a nonprofit he'd once represented. Quietly, discreetly, he shared Miguel's story, not with pity, but with admiration. A young man working double shifts to care for a dying parent. A modern-day hero hiding in plain sight. Soon, a small online fundraiser was launched. Not flashy, just a note. Let's lift up a young man who's been carrying the weight of the world alone. Within days, it gained traction. $200, then $2,000, then $10,000. Miguel didn't know any of this until Mr. Klein called him into the office again. There's something you need to see, he said, holding up a laptop screen. Miguel stared at the donations page, his mouth slightly open. The headline read, For Miguel, because silent battles deserve loud support. He scrolled through the comments. Your story moved me to tears. Stay strong, Miguel. My brother had cancer too. You're a warrior. You reminded me to never judge a book by its cover. Tears finally welled in Miguel's eyes. I don't understand, he whispered. Klein smiled. Someone saw you, Miguel. Really saw you. Nathan visited Miguel and his mother a week later. Teresa was weak but lucid, her eyes shining as she looked between the two men. You yelled at my son? She asked, voice teasing but faint. Nathan smiled awkwardly. I did. And I was wrong. Teresa took Miguel's hand. He's stronger than people think. I know that now, Nathan said. Before he left, he handed Miguel a folder. Inside was an acceptance letter, reactivated from his previous college offer, with full scholarship and part-time flexibility to accommodate his caregiving. I made a few calls, Nathan said. You still deserve your future, Miguel, and I'll help however I can. Miguel opened the folder slowly, disbelief turning to hope. Why? He asked. Nathan looked him in the eye. Because I've spent most of my life arguing in courtrooms about right and wrong. But you taught me what justice really looks like. Epilogue. The shelf that wasn't empty after all. Months later, a plaque appeared in aisle 9 of Miller's Market. It sat just above the soap shelf. It read, In honor of Miguel Santiago, who showed us that empty shelves can hide the fullest hearts. Miguel left the store a few weeks later to begin his college journey. His mother's health declined, but her spirit